Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became the architect part 2. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 3, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story by Kaptein Univers from fanfiction.net. So let's start the video. Two thoughts went through Dobby's head as a massive fist came crashing down towards him. The first one was wondering how he would survive this, and the second one was planning how he would kill Deku for making him fight this monster again. Luckily the first issue was solved when the target of the second thought pulled him away. "We've gotten too far now for you to die on me like that. The beast is almost down," Deku said. "Down? We've barely scratched him, even with your power," Dobby said. He turned as 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 tore himself out of one of Todoroki's glaciers. "Haven't you noticed? He's slowing down, he's getting tired. All we need is one final push," Deku said. Green lightning began crackling around him ominously. "I'll try to get him into the ground, tell Todoroki and 𝗳𝗏 be ready. As soon as he's on the ground I want him to stay there." Deku leapt forwards towards the roaring giant in front of him, delivering a strike to the head. 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 stumbled slightly before directing his rage towards Deku. 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 swinged his fist towards Deku, who jumped over it and up 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁's arm. "Leave me alone," 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 said and flung his arm upwards, launching Deku into the sky. Deku wrapped black around the giant's head and came down for a blow. His fist smashed into 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁's head and pushed it into the ground with a boom. "Now," Deku said and began tying up 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 with his black. A hill of ice formed over 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁's back, followed soon by a streak of pink going over it, making the ice elastic. Deku smirked as 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 was pinned to the ground. "So, big guy, do you want to make this difficult, or will you bend the knee?" "I only serve Lord," 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 said. "Haven't you heard? All for one is history, I made sure of that," Deku said. 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁's eyes shot up and he roared. The ice above formed cracks and Deku felt the black losing their grip. "Maybe it's time for you to rest," he said and threw a canister into the open mouth. The canister cracked open and the contents turned into a gas as it went down the giant's throat. "I'll avenge my lord," 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 said as his hands grew long claws. They began tearing up the earth and within a second he had disappeared into the ground. "That was new," Dobby said. "Be careful, he'll be back," Deku said and looked back and forth over the ground. A sudden sensation in his head made him turn around towards 𝗳𝗏 and Todoroki. He leapt forwards and pushed away right as a fist rose from the ground and caught him. The fist closed its grip around him as 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 rose up. Deku felt like he was about to break under the grip. It was right before he used his own quirk before the grip loosened and he was dropped on the ground. Two streams of fire, one blue and one white, were engulfing 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁. The giant lunged towards Deku, ignoring the inferno around him. Deku got ready to fight back when 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁 suddenly fell to the ground. "What happened?" 𝗳𝗏 said. "A very potent sedative along with some technical stuff from Melissa," Deku said. He walked up to 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗁's head and inspected it. Went right into his bloodstream. After that it was just a matter of time before he went to sleep. "Then why you didn't use that sooner?" Dobby said. "Because his quirks is still largely unknown. He could very well had had a quirk to counteract fatigue or substances. I had to know if there was a limit to his energy." Deku turned around and smirked. "Anyways, now comes the fun part, turning him into a weapon to turn the tides. You sure that he will be enough? We're literally fighting the most well-equipped army on Earth right now," Todoroki said. "Not in this state of course. I need to turn him into something much more powerful. I'm thinking something with more fire, some shadows, wings, and a pair of horns perhaps. Like a 𝗲𝗏𝗺," Deku said before suddenly stopping. He stumbled and began coughing. "Are you alright?" 𝗳𝗏 said. He grabbed Deku's shoulder and steadied him. Maybe, Deku said and stared at the BLD on his hand. I don't think I overused any quirks. He opened a portal. Let's just get this beast back to the base. Another rumble went through the base as 𝗀𝗃 entered the massive chamber. By the door stood a grinning Deku and in the other end laid an exhausted 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗍. How much energy does that monster have? 𝗀𝗃 said. Less than I expected, but that's not the worst problem. Destroying someone's mind is usually a simple procedure, but he has willpower beyond reason, Deku said. His voice made 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗍 snap back up and charge towards Deku. Arcs of lightning from the wall struck 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗍 and pushed him back until he fell, causing another rumble. Luckily I think I found a way to slowly chip away at that willpower. Deku began walking towards 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗍, walking past the point where the lightning had shot out. 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗍 looked up with a growl, earning a chuckle from Deku. This seems a bit cruel. Treating him like an animal without honor, 𝗀𝗃 said. Life is cruel. Deku walked back to 𝗀𝗃. And it will continue to be so until we win. Everything we do before that is a necessary evil. Besides, this is pretty mild compared other things I've done. Get used to it, Deku said. He then noticed the folder 𝗀𝗃 was carrying. What are those for? Oh right, I was supposed to give it to you, 𝗀𝗃 said and handed over the folder. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 thinks she's found the guy the government claims blew up the US base. Tsukachi almost jumped out of his chairs when a folder fell on his desk. Apologies, I didn't intend to scare you, Deku said as he came out of a portal. But this is a bit urgent. Just give me a call next time, Tsukachi said. He opened the folder and began looking through it. Is this the suspect? He's definitely the one Zenkaku claims to have captured, Deku said and pulled out a chair. Osugi Sakai, 28 years old and unemployed. Joined the revolution 2 years after my death. Has mostly been doing spy work for the 3rd Tokyo cell. We lost contact with him 3 weeks before the attack. There are a lot of redacted lines in these reports, Tsukachi said. Just some sensitive info regarding ongoing events. Nothing important to our investigation. It's his quirk that is more interesting, Deku said. Tsukachi looked over the relevant pages, most of them handwritten, making him raise an eyebrow. I might have added some personal notes just to flesh it out a bit. Tsukachi took a sip of his coffee. Wardrobe, changing his clothing to that of anyone he can see. A good infiltrator, he said. That's what worries me. He has a quirk that would be able to execute the attack. He just has to spot a soldier from the base, and if my theories are correct, he would be able to copy everything in the uniform. Including the identity chips that make sure the alarms aren't triggered, Deku said. Wait, what alarms? Some classified stuff the US has to prevent unauthorized personnel. Clearly it didn't work, Deku said. Either way, his quirk seems to line up with the member gone rogue theory. The only thing that doesn't line up is the charges placed on the ships. His quirk would have been noticed, Tsukachi said. Yeah. I've got someone I know working to get the security footage, but it's more secure than she expected. You don't happen to have access, do you? No, I don't, but I might know someone. I'll contact him and see if he can get hold of anything, Tsukachi said. Great. I'll be in touch if I find anything, Deku said and left. Tsukachi pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Naomasa, why are you calling me so late? A voice said in the other end. I just need a favor, Toshinori. Did you ever work with the military during your time overseas? Phoenix Journal, number 6 entry 42, I finally got some time to take Koshiro and Eri out for lunch today. I'm so glad that I can be there for them now. Though, not everything is great. Things between me and Ochako has gotten complicated since I got back. I still love her, and I think she still loves me, but there is so much conflict outside of that. All Might is her mentor, I want to kill him. Kaken has become a friend of sorts to her, I want to kill him. She's a hero, I'm a villain. Something will clash eventually and I don't think either of us will back down. A confrontation will come and I won't be able to forgive myself if I win entry 47, my work on 𝗳𝗍𝗵𝗃𝗍 is progressing nicely. It seems like his original quirk allows his body to adapt quickly to threats. Normally in the form of mundane things like illness. But add in quirks and you've got a body that can hold endless potential. And if he can handle my 𝗵𝗃 quirk, he could become my greatest weapon. Something far beyond a simple 𝗵𝗃. Hopefully I'll have time. As for my own health and well-being, I'm still perplexed. I haven't used my 𝗵𝗃 quirk in a way that should damage me since I came back. And yet I see the same symptoms I had after I fought 𝗳𝗏. Much milder, but still something to worry about. Until I've figured it, I'll have to stop copying new ones. Deku looked intently as a bright orange fire crashed against the window in front of him. An inferno raged in the large testing chamber. In the center of it all stood a creature of flame and shadow. The fire pulsed as the creature roared and bashed back and forth. Come one now. I know you handle my quirk, especially a weakened version, Deku said. The creature began steadying itself, slowly looking over itself. Rise. The fire began circling around the creature, coiling itself around its body. Flames sprouted out from its back like wings. It raised a fist as a sword of fire materialized. Deku laughed. The door slammed open. Deku. They've launched a naval invasion against Kyushu. They've taken the southern coastline, Musho said. She then noticed the creature in front of her. What is that? A 𝗵𝗃, a creature of shadow and flame. Deku smirked and turned around. And it seems that he got ready just in time. Spinner dropped down from the wall with his sword ready to deal with the soldiers below. His blade immediately pierced one soldier and quickly found itself lodged in another's throat. Spinner pulled out a knife and slashed the hands a third soldier, making him drop his gun. He turned around and threw the knife towards the soldier, burying it into the skull. Spinner then finished of the third soldier with a simple cut across the abdomen. The wound in Spinner's shoulder screamed out in agony from the sudden movements. The bandage was already turning red. Can't keep fighting like this, he said. He could hear the sound of a tank approaching. All units fall back, Kagoshima is lost, Spinner said over the comms. Ignore that order. Maintain defensive lines, another voice said over the comms. We're pushing back these invaders, Deku said. Then came a sudden explosion from around the corner along with a flying tank turret with nothing attached. So what is the situation? Deku said as he walked around the corner. Not good. We're nearly pushed out of Kagoshima, coastal defenses are gone and they've taken most of the nearby coastline. SAM sites are also gone, giving them complete air superiority. Establishing a proper defensive line is pointless as they just break through them, so we're using ambushes instead. Though that won't work once we're pushed out of the city, Spinner said. His gaze turned towards the ground. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, I've never though for a moment that you're not trying your best. That shoulder wound is testament to that. Deku grabbed Spinner's uninjured shoulder. Don't worry now, I am here and our ultimate weapon will arrive soon. Within a few minutes the Americans will be the ones running away. We just need to hold them back for a little while longer. Until then I want you to get some medical help, Deku said and opened a portal. I've got this. Go and kick their butt, Spinner said and began walking towards the portal. Oh, one more thing. Spinner stopped. How is the situation regarding civilians? Deku said. The attack came suddenly, so we didn't have time to evacuate anyone. The outer edges has evacuated on their own, but the city center had civilians running around. I don't know how the situation is now though, Spinner said. How come? I was just wondering, that's all, Deku said and jumped away. Deku came crashing down on a small convoy of soldier, sending them flying to side as he impacted the ground. Deku launched the closest ones into a nearby with an explosion. Some of the other soldier opened fire. Deku quickly raised up a wall between him and the gunfire. Once the guns fell silent, he smashed his fist through the wall and grabbed the soldiers with black. With one pull they all crashed through the wall and flew into the air. Another yank downwards ensured their demise. We've located Deku, an English voice said from above. A sudden force suddenly pushed Deku into the ground. He felt the ground grow around his feet and arms, locking him in place. He looked up and could see tree figures standing above him. Their features were difficult to see due to the sun. So they're sending heroes as well now. On behalf of the US government, we demand that you surrender, one of the figures said. Deku recognized the voice. Captain Celebrity, the embodiment of everything wrong with hero society. Like I'll ever surrender to corrupt celebrities, Deku said. He released a massive explosion that blew away the shackles around his hands. Another explosion pushed him back up and face to face with one of the heroes. He quickly grabbed the hero's neck and twisted it with a crack. The ground suddenly rose up and engulfed Deku and began throwing him back and forth. He tried using overhaul, but the earth filled the gaps faster than he could make them. In desperation, he sent out black through the earth, trying to grab onto something. Finding something to hold onto, he ripped himself out of the shifting earth and through a building. Deku jumped up through the building before he could be trapped again. He was quickly grabbed by Captain Celebrity and was taken up into the sky. Bad move, Deku said and released an explosion in the hero's face. Now I can take you on alone. No one beats me in the air, Captain Celebrity said and rushed forwards. Deku tried striking back, but the hero flew around the attack and struck Deku from behind and he began tumbling downwards. Captain Celebrity continued delivering blows, sending Deku towards the ground. As the ground got dangerously close, Deku latched onto the nearby building with black and launched himself back up, delivering a kick to Captain Celebrity at the same time. Some sort of energy shield, Deku said, noticing the unscratched hero. Is that your quirk perhaps? Then I wonder. He said and looked over to the other hero on the ground. Deku launched himself downwards, dodging the pillars of earth that shot up. He grabbed the hero and began punching him, giving no time to rest. But at every blow he felt that something was blocking his hits. So you can extend the shield, but how much concentration does it need? Deku said. And diverted Captain Celebrity away with a portal. He grabbed the hero with black and pulled him into the ground. Deku quickly turned back and released an explosion over the grounded hero's chest. This time a large hole appeared in the hero's chest. Captain Celebrity slowly stood up and looked in shock at the splatters of blood on Deku's clothes. Why do you do this? He had a family, he said. Me having hopes and dreams didn't stop All Might from destroying them. And having a mother didn't prevent her from dying. Who knows which dreams this guy killed? Deku said. He shrugged. All I know is that I fight for a just cause, and this guy stood in my way. If he had chosen to do something good, then he could still be with his family. You can't kill people just because you've had it difficult, Captain Celebrity said and got ready to attack. I'll make sure you face justice. I make my own justice, Deku said as green lightning crackled around his skin. The two adversaries got ready to attack each other when a sudden roar filled the sky. They both looked up, one with confusion and one with a smirk. Oh, he's here. About time, Deku said. Two jet fighters passed over the city, firing at a target they couldn't see yet. A sudden stream of fire filled the sky and sent the aircrafts falling down. A massive creature appeared above the buildings, slowly descending. Its skin like a cracked and dark molten rock, swallowing all light, only the cracks giving of a dim orange light. The creature was shrouded in a fire that caused nearby windows to crack. It bent down and looked at Captain Celebrity, its horns were curled downwards and close to the ground. Captain Celebrity flew forwards to face the creature head-on. He was stopped. A 𝗲𝗵𝗃 of fire wrapped around his feet and flung him into the creature's hand. He looked up as the demon-like creation let out a roar that sounded like a torrent of steam and rock. That's enough, 𝗲𝗵𝗃. I want him alive, Deku said. The Balrog looked at Deku for a moment before dropping the hero. Deku swiftly picked him up and tied him up with black. Now, go and do what I made you for. Kill the invaders. 𝗲𝗵𝗃 made something close to a smile before rising up into the sky, heading towards the sound of gunfire. Deku turned towards the struggling Captain Celebrity. Calm down, Deku said and injected something into the hero with a syringe. Let's go and enjoy the view, Deku said and opened a portal. Todoroki felt the frost creeping up his right side. The ice walls were becoming difficult to maintain. Soon they would have to fight the surrounding army. From behind him came Dabi covered in dust. There's no use. They're underground as well. The tunnels collapsed in the fighting. There is no escape, he said. Guess we'll go down guns blazing then, Todoroki said. Well, we're just outnumbered 40-1. I like those odds, Dabi said as the outside gunfire slowly intensified, chipping away at the ice. The duo readied their fire. The first bullets began piercing the ice when suddenly they stopped. An unnatural roar filled the air and the gunfire resumed, but aimed elsewhere. Screams could be heard as the sound of guns slowly dwindled until only the sound of heavy footsteps remained. What is that? Todoroki said and melted a hole in the ice wall. Dabi joined in as well. So that is what Deku meant by much more powerful. Yeah, I almost feel sorry for the Americans, Dabi said. Deku looked in awe as his creation wreaked havoc on the city. Buildings crashing down in places with plumes of fire and smoke. All the while accompanied by the sound of gunfire and artillery fire. Behind him laid 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗱, unable to do anything. Please stop. They're already retreating, the hero said. This is a lesson, Mr. Celebrity. A lesson in what happens to those who try to stop me. You burn, Deku said. What about the civilians? How can you claim that you want to help them when you kill them? Because I don't keep myself stuck in the short term. I make plans for the long term. This is the only way to free everyone from oppression. You have to sacrifice some to save everyone else. You're just a psychopath making excuses. Just like the villain that killed you, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗱 said. I am nothing like All for One. I'm not some simple megalomaniac wanting to dominate others. You want to know who I really am? Deku said and lifted 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗱 up to eye level. I'm the bad guy, a villain. The one who brings death and destruction because it is needed. Someone has to do this, and that someone is me. Deku dropped the hero. The better question is how you live with yourself. Pretending to be a hero while walking around with that ridiculous name. I know you're kind, you're just looking for money and fame. You don't care about the people you serve. Maybe in the past, but I met some people who changed that. I know there are more important things than fame and glory. I'll do anything to protect that, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗱 said. Really? Deku said and crouched down. Then tell me, how many villains have run rampant while you were busy appearing on late-night shows? How many civilians have died in natural disaster while you talked with your sponsors? How many families have been trapped inside burning buildings while you were helping politicians getting re-elected? He leaned in even closer. How many mother died right beside you while you gave a fan an autograph? A large boom sounded in the distance, interrupting the conversation. Seems like the finale of this battle is about to happen, Deku said. He picked up 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗱 and made him face the harbor. Let's see how well your fleet can handle a Balrog. 𝗳𝗏𝗼 hovered in the distance above the water, blocking the US fleet from the ocean. He was bombarded with artillery shell and missiles, but continued moving closer. A sword of fire formed in his hand and came down on the first ship, cutting it in half. 𝗳𝗏𝗼 raised his other hand and formed a WHP of fire and struck down the nearby fighters. With a roar, the Balrog unleashed a torrent of fire, engulfing the fleet and detonating the stored ammunition. Only a few ships remained. I think that's enough, 𝗳𝗏𝗼. Let's keep the remaining ships. Drag them ashore for capture, Deku said over comms. The Balrog stopped his rampage and began doing as ordered. As for you, Deku said and smirked at the hero in his grasp. I'll think you'll be excellent leverage in a negotiation. Toshinori looked across the table at his successor. She was looking down into her half-empty mug. Are you all right? He said, only receiving a sigh. Is it about Kagoshima? You know you can't blame yourself when they only brought in American heroes. No, it's not that. I'm just so unsure about myself, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said, her eyes briefly glancing up. You chose me as your successor, and I feel like I keep letting you down. You're not letting me down, Uraraka. I know you do your very best every time. It's just unfortunate that Deku does the same, 𝗧𝗪 said. But I don't think I'm doing my best, not anymore, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said and looked up from the table. I'm supposed to be a new symbol of peace, right? The shining beacon of safety and justice for everyone to look up to. But ever since Izuku came back I've felt more and more uncertain. I don't even know if I'm fighting for the right side anymore. What do you mean? Just look at this, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said and handed over her phone to 𝗧𝗪. This message was given to every hero a few hours after the Kagoshima disaster. They're integrating the Public Hero Safety Commission into the army. 𝗧𝗪 said as he read through the notice. Yeah, they're essentially turning heroes into another military branch. 𝗧𝗧𝗪 took back her phone. I'm afraid of where this will take us. If they continue, then Izuku will really become a liberator. Dictators always rise out of turmoil, 𝗧𝗪 said with a solemn look. There was a pause in the conversation. Have you talked with Midoriya recently? 𝗧𝗪 said. It's complicated. At first I was just glad to see him after so long, I never stopped missing him after all. But things has become difficult as he wins more and more, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said. She leaned forwards. I think we both know a clash will come. One that only one of us can win. It has made our meetings, both in dreams and the real world, difficult. Neither one of us are willing to bring that inevitability up. Do you still love him? 𝗧𝗪 said. I do, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said without hesitation. And because of that I can't defeat him. If I do I'll lose him forever. And I can't lose because then he'll kill you, Bakugo and many others. 𝗧𝗪 let out a long sigh, scratching his chin. I've never been one to understand romance, but I can see the predicament. He leaned forwards with a gentle smile. But I'm also sure that when the time comes you will make the right choice. Thank you, 𝗧𝗪, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said and stood up. Anyways, I should get going. Bakugo doesn't mind taking care of Koshiro, but I'm sure he would like to get back to Kirishima. You're probably right. Have a nice day, 𝗧𝗧𝗪, 𝗧𝗪 said. You too, 𝗧𝗪, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said and left. As 𝗧𝗧𝗪 entered her house she was greeted by Bakugo sitting on the couch. Sorry I was gone for so long, me and 𝗧𝗪 lost track of time, she said. Don't worry about it, Bakugo said. His tone was still strangely calm. Koshiro is in his room playing with Fumiko. That sounds good, he's been missing her lately. It's good they can visit each other again, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said and sat down next to Bakugo. Is Kirishima doing alright? Oh yeah, he's up and going. He'll be back in the field in just a few days, Bakugo said, some his fervor returning to his voice. Then what's bothering you? Usually you would be with Koshiro and Fumiko as they play, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said. Who do you think is bothering me? Bakugo said. He clenched his jaw and looked away. All the past demons I've spent 8 years on burying has come back along with Deku. And I can't stop thinking about it all, especially when Koshiro is so similar to Deku. Especially that smile. I thought I had put it behind me, but... He stopped and looked at his open hand. I've just done the same thing as always. Push everything deep down and hope it doesn't come back up, Bakugo said, clenching his fist. 𝗧𝗧𝗪 sighed. It seems like everyone has been conflicted since Izuku came back, including himself. What are you talking about? The 𝗧𝗪 is winning, he should be happy. He isn't, not at all. Something is bothering him deeply and he won't tell me. Ever since he came back he has had this constant sad look. Even when he's smiling and laughing I can still tell that something is eating him up inside, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said. Ah, so you're in rough patch of the relationship, Bakugo said. Can't relate, he added. That's putting it mildly. We've both known that we will fight each other one day, and that only one of us could win. And now that time is getting worryingly close, 𝗧𝗧𝗪 said. Well, I for one hope that you win. Because if you don't, he'll kill me. I know. Bakugo stood up and called for Fumiko. Time to leave, Fumiko, we're heading back home. He turned around and faced Ochako again. By the way, about the notice the army gave us recently. Me and Ijiro thinks that turning heroes into soldiers is going too far. He doesn't think it's manly, and I don't want to give Deku another reason to kill me. So we'll be handing in our hero licenses tomorrow. Ochako's response was interrupted when Fumiko came barging into the room, followed shortly by Koshiro. There you are, Bakugo said and picked up Fumiko. You ready to go home? Yeah. Me and Koshi had so much fun, Fumiko said. Bye Koshi, she said and gave a wave. Koshiro waved back. Bye Fumi. Bakugo put Fumiko back down. Sorry to drop that so suddenly. But good luck with what's ahead, he said and began leaving with Fumiko. Thanks. And stay safe, will you? Ochako said. Bakugo left without a reply. Once Bakugo and Fumiko had left, Koshiro jumped up in Ochako's lap. Did you have fun today? She asked. Yes, we played heroes and villain a lot. I was the villain and she was the hero, Koshiro said. That sounds fun. Oh, and Dad came by, Koshiro said. Ochako looked at him with a shocked expression. Did he talk with Bakugo? Nope, he teleported into my room and just talked for a while. He was kinda surprised by Fumiko being there, but they seemed to get along, Koshiro said, calming down Ochako slightly. And he was wondering about something as well. And what was that? Ochako said. I don't know. He wanted to tell you. Deku leaned back into the chair with a groan. The cork board in front of him was filled with pictures, documents, and red strings. It was mocking him. Alright, so we know he still hadn't gone rogue 1 week before the attack. So he would have had to get his hand on over 100 kilos of high-grade explosives and plant them in a military base within a week. That would be difficult even for me. And I've got an entire organized underground network. He definitely didn't do it on his own, if he was involved at all, Tsukachi said. He sat by his desk looking over a grainy security footage of a bar their suspect had been to. Wait, I think I found someone. He's talking with someone right before he gets up and leaves. Deku moved over and looked at the paused video. I've already looked into that. It's Osugi's sister, 𝗬𝗓𝗍𝗄. She also joined the revolution and died during one of our attacks before the bombings. Nothing indicates that she went rogue. Another dead end then. Tsukachi took a sip of his 5th cup of coffee. Without more evidence, we'll just keep running in circles. Has your ally found anything yet? No, she says the security systems might take a few more months to get past. Not including the time spent on other projects. How's your contact coming along? Deku said. He being careful so that I don't get into trouble. Might have something soon, Tsukachi said. All might being careful, that's new, Deku said, ignoring Tsukachi's quirked eyebrow. Guess he can be considerate, every now and again. Alright, I'm too tired to ask how you knew I asked him. I'll be going home now, Tsukachi said and stood up. Just assume I know everything. That way you don't get surprised when Deku was interrupted by his phone ringing. Excuse me for a moment, he said and picked up the phone, leaving Tsukachi to only hear one part of the conversation. Hi Ochako, Izuku said. A small smile appeared. Oh that. No, I just want to talk to you about a few things. Tsukachi found himself more confused by the sudden shift in tone. We can talk about that later, I'm in the middle of something right now. Alright, bye. Deku put down the phone and looked back at Tsukachi. His expression turned back to the serious one Tsukachi had gotten used to. I guess I'll say goodbye to you as well. Deku opened a portal. I'll be busy tomorrow, so see you again over Moro, he said. And left. Izuku looked over Kagoshima and sighed. The fires had been put out but the damage from 𝗳𝗏𝗼 was still visible like a large wound through the side. By the harbor the captured fleet was still anchored. He pushed down his anxieties and opened a portal next to him. After a few seconds 𝗧𝗏𝗄 walked through and sat down next to Izuku. I saw some of the news footage, but you really let that thing destroy everything, 𝗧𝗏𝗄 said. Just another necessary evil, Izuku said, his voice cold and distant. I know what you're capable of. This is too much. 𝗧𝗏𝗄's face hardened. I guess there is a reason you wanted to talk here. I'll get to it, but first. Izuku said, voice warming up. I just want you to know how much I've missed this. Just being with you and Eri again, instead of just wishful thinking. And finally being with my own son after 8 years of wondering has been amazing. I'm also glad to see he has a friend. He turned and noticed the slight worry in 𝗧𝗏𝗄's face. Calm down, I only talked with him and Fumiko yesterday. I can't bear talking with Kaken now. That's good to hear, I've missed you too, 𝗧𝗏𝗄 said as the two leaned into each other's embrace. But you know we can't keep this up for much longer, right? We're both the strongest players on opposing sides. At some point we'll be forced to fight. It would seem so. Izuku sighed and gave an almost pleading look. I know about the recent decision to turn heroes into another tool of the army. And not to sound like a prophet, but this could only go one way. Dictators always rise out of turmoil. I've made the turmoil, now comes the dictator. You're not someone who would fight for that regime. You know, Toshinori said the same thing, 𝗧𝗏𝗄 said, ignoring Izuku's grumbling. And Bakugo and Kirishima handed in their hero licenses today. I don't care about what they do. I want to know what you think. If you just hand in your license then we don't have to fight. I can find somewhere for you, Eri and Koshiro to live comfortably, safe from any threat, Izuku said. I won't fight for a dictatorship if that's what you're afraid of. But as long as you want to kill Toshinori and Bakugo I can't let you win either, 𝗧𝗏𝗄 said, sending a stern gaze. You'll have to let go of what they did in the past for me to back down. Izuku chuckled. I can't do that. You can, Izuku, I know it. Inko has told me all about the forgiving child you used to be. Izuku continued to chuckle as he stood up. Did she also tell you how naive I was? How dumb I was to think becoming a hero would solve everything? His voice hitched. No, I can't forgive All Might and especially not Kaken. 𝗧𝗏𝗄 rose up and forced Izuku to face her. Exactly, you've changed so much since then. Don't you think Bakugo and Toshinori has done the same? You don't know how many times I've had to support Toshinori as he felt awful for what he did to you. Or all the times I've had to reassure Bakugo that his past doesn't define him. 𝗧𝗏𝗄's voice rose in volume as Izuku looked down. That's not to mention everything they've both done to make amends for it all. Bakugo even adopted a quirkless daughter, and we both know how difficult raising a child can be. I know that, Izuku said quietly. And believe me, it would be so simple to accept that. So that I can spend the rest of my life with you. He looked back up at 𝗧𝗏𝗄. A weak smile on his face even as tears streamed down. But I can't. You can, I believe in you. I know you have it in you, 𝗧𝗏𝗄 said. It's not about that. Izuku pushed 𝗧𝗏𝗄 away. His expression kept twitching between sadness and anger. I've spent years pushing that part of me down, because it's the only way for me to keep going. And if I began allowing myself to forgive again then. His voice hitched. Then I would start to think that I have any chance of redemption. 𝗧𝗏𝗄 embraced Izuku as he broke down, sobbing in her arms. Oh Izuku. What makes you think that you don't deserve forgiveness? Why I don't? Izuku let out a weak chuckle between the tears. I've killed too many innocent people to ever hope for redemption. I'm haunted by the screams of my test subjects. And images of dead children crushed by falling rubble lurk under my eyes. I let Ida die. Your friend. You did. 𝗧𝗏𝗄 loosened her grip around Izuku. But you regret it all, don't you? You want redemption just like Bakugo and Toshinori. If you think forgiving them is easy then you can forgive yourself. Izuku's sobbing calmed down. It's not like that. He pushed himself out of 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏's embrace. They didn't even realize that their actions were wrong until long after. Their demons are in the past and behind them. Meanwhile, I know exactly what I'm doing, but I still keep making more demons to keep me up at night. 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏 contemplated for a moment before placing a hand on 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏's shoulder. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏, I don't agree with everything you do, and especially with all the people you kill. But I know you want to achieve good things, even if the means aren't. So I don't want you to think for a moment that you can't redeem yourself when this is all over. But 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 said. 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏 cut him off. Doesn't matter. I forgive you even if you don't. She looked straight into 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏's eyes and became surprised when she saw annoyance. Why do you have to make it so difficult? The words came out slowly. I'm trying to make this easier for the both of us and you. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 grew a gentle smile. You almost make me believe that there is hope. I know there is hope, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏's entire expression was determined. That makes one of us, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 said nonchalantly. A pling from 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏's pocket stopped him from saying anything else. He muttered about something important to 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏 as he pulled up his phone. He barely noticed the 3 missed calls from 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 as he read the message from the Revolution's HQ. As 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 read the message, his features slowly shifted from one of confusion to one of shock until the phone fell on the ground as he stared emptily into the air. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏, 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏 said. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏's face was blank. Go home and make sure 𝗳𝗏𝗏 and 𝗃𝗧𝗏 is safe. Make sure they are with you and don't leave them alone. He opened a portal next to 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏. Is someone after them? 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏 said. I don't know. They might be. There is a lot I can't know for certain right now. Just go home and make sure everyone is safe. Probably all might as well if you care about him. Then check the new if you want answers, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 said. Alright, but we're continuing this conversation later, 𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗏 said and stepped into the portal. Deku let out a deep sigh and picked up the phone. He quickly sent a message to HQ, telling them to bring 𝗃𝗏𝗏 to a secure location. He then turned his attention towards the 3 missed calls, each one sent about 30 minutes apart. Deku began going through them. Deku, it's me 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏, there was an urgency in his tone. I know that you said you'll be busy today, but something showed up just now. Something big. Please hurry up, the detective said before the voice message ended. Deku played the next one. Deku, you really need to come now. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏's voice was filled with stress. I don't care what you're doing right now, you need to see this. I know who did it and, we've been so stupid. I should have seen it sooner. Deku braced himself for a moment before playing the last message. Immediately he could hear that 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 was driving while talking. Alright, I'm hoping you'll pick up one of these messages soon. The video I received is in my office once you have time. It was Zankaku who did it, he is behind the attack. Osugi Sakai never had anything to do with it, he was just some decoy to link the attack to you. I'm heading to the Prime Minister to inform him. We can discuss more later if we get the time. Hurry up. Deku's hands were shaking as he heard 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏's last message. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 UF idiot. Another message from the headquarters popped up, this one containing a link. Deku followed it to video of a governmental announcement held by Zankaku. People of Japan, I regret to inform you that Prime Minister Yowei is dead. For several months the detective known as 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 has been conspiring with the villain Deku. He has used his position in the Phoenix investigation to hide these actions until today. Under an hour ago, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 along with other insurgents launched a surprise attack against our government. The resulting fighting resulted in the death of Prime Minister Yowei, most of his cabinet and many representatives in the National Diet. But the insurgents have been captured and 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 was killed in the fighting. Deku could feel his blood boil as the lies flowed out of Zankaku's mouth. It took most of his willpower to not throw the phone away without hearing the rest. Given this unprecedented situation, an emergency resolution was drafted and passed by the remainders of the government before being signed by the emperor. This resolution declares a state of emergency that will last until the threat of Deku and the Phoenix Revolution is annihilated. Until then I have been granted emergency powers to best lead the country through these perilous times. Acting immediately, martial law will be implemented. Along with that, all heroes and police units must report to the local military leadership to better respond to the looming threat. I will also dash. At that point Deku put the phone away. He opened a portal and walked through muttering. So this is how it feels like to be bamboozled. There was a strange feeling hanging in the air of 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐻𝗄𝐻 office. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 looked around the once familiar room that now felt so foreign. He slumped down into the chair and sighed, his eyes looking on the framed photograph on 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗄𝐻's desk. What happened to you? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 refused to believe the official story. He knew 𝗧𝗵𝗃. He knew that the detective had from time to time worked with people outside the law, but he would never try to lead a coup. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 ripped his gaze away from the photograph and opened the laptop that still remained. To his surprise, there was already a text file opened up labeled Answers. Curiosity gripped 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and he began reading the short text. Answers. I hope the right person is reading this. Firstly, I've already taken all the data present on this laptop. The only reason I'm leaving this behind for you is because of the respect I had for 𝗧𝗵𝗃. You're probably wondering what happened to your friend. Don't believe Zankaku. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and I only ever worked on two things together. The first one you should know, all for one. The other and more relevant one was in connection to the bombing of Yokosuka. I never played any part in that attack. We cooperated to find out who was behind it. Long story short, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 found the final piece of evidence showing that it was a false flag attack orchestrated by Zankaku. My best guess of what happened afterwards is that 𝗧𝗵𝗃 went to inform Minister Yowei, which made Zankaku execute his coup. That's the story. Now I would recommend resting, because your time will soon come, All Might. The kid whose dreams you crushed, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 contemplated as he read through the text several times. He could feel tears building up. I guess you chased the truth to the end, my friend. He wiped his eyes and closed the laptop. I'll wait for us to meet again. How certain are you we can trust these two? Deku said, his back leaning against the alleyway wall. Because if I remember correctly, you didn't spend much of your time at UA socializing. And one of them took your spot after you left. I can't speak much for Discord, but he did mention something about those blessed by heroic quirks during the sports festival. So he might have been discriminated based on his quirk, Todoroki said. As for 𝗧𝗵𝗃, I don't know much. I think he interned under Hawks. So we should be careful to not repeat that failure. Hawks intern, you say? Deku rubbed his chin. Hawks mentioned him once while I was in Tartarus. Said he shared a lot of our ideals back then. Hopefully that hasn't changed. The sound of footsteps interrupted Deku's thinking. He quickly recognized the two figures. One cloaked with a bird-shaped head, and another with messy purple hair and a familiar gray cloth on his shoulders. Deku straightened up and walked over to the duo, Todoroki following close behind. Discord, 𝗧𝗵𝗃, it's good to see some heroes have a sense of morality. Deku stopped and looked straight at 𝗧𝗵𝗃. But forgive for being cautious given my former trust in the one you interned under. He claimed that you shared my ideals many years ago, but didn't think much of my methods. Hawks only ever did what he thought was right at the time, same for me. Now with the choice between two quirkless dictators, I'd rather pick the more consistent one. No matter how dark the path is, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said. Choosing the lesser of two evils. A logical decision, though morally ambiguous. You're quite a high-ranking hero, why not convince your colleagues and form a new path? I doubt Zankaku could survive losing the support of heroes. What difference would it make? Discord said. You won against heroes before Zankaku and would have afterwards. At this point it's just about choosing the side that can bring actual change to us who needs it. So you consider yourself a part of the oppressed yet became a tool for the oppressor. Deku turned towards Discord. If I remember correctly, you joined the hero course after the revolution was formed. People has called me a villain for my quirk for as long as I've lived. I was more focused on my own need to prove them wrong then. It's only recently I've begun to look for more systematic ways of helping others like me. You seem like the only way right now. Deku took a few steps back and pondered. You both have good reasons, and I have nothing much against you two as heroes. But I thought the same of Hawks for a while. I let him in and he betrayed me. Why are you two different? There is another reason for why we're joining you, 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 said. We both have a someone we want to keep safe, seeing as you've incinerated all heroes so far. You want to save someone you care about, so heroic. Deku smirked. Who? Eraserhead, 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 said. Hawks, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. Deku took a moment to ponder. Eraserhead is easy, he won't face any punishment. He's one of the good ones. Deku clenched his fists. As for Hawks, you better have a really good reason for me to spare that backstabbing traitor. Hawks only did what he thought was right at the time. He's an optimist to a fault and thought the Hero Commission could change. He would have chosen differently now, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. Deku walked closer to 𝗧𝗵𝗲. If you are so sure of that, then why don't we test it? If he really would have chosen differently now, he'll live. And if the opposite is the case, he'll go through the process same as everyone else. Fine, if that is what it takes. Great, then you can begin immediately. I already have something in mind for both of you. To test you both, Deku said. What exactly? 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 said. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 here will have an important task ahead of him. Deku then smirked as he looked over to 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧. And you'll be helping me hijack a certain plane. President 𝗪𝗀 looked out the windows of Air Force One as his Secretary of Defense updated him on the situation in Japan. So we still don't know how he made that demon. 𝗪𝗀 said. Zankaku's agents have given us some theories, but the only thing they can conclude is that it's a 𝗵𝗃. Our own agents know even less, the secretary said. 𝗪𝗀 looked over to his laptop showing the burning creature Deku had made. Well, we need to find out. I can't allow another moment of such a weapon being in the hands of a green-haired psychopath. 𝗪𝗀 rubbed his temples. How's preparations for the next attack going? I hope we can handle the giant burning abomination this time. The preparations are on schedule and the nuke is ready. We can go ahead next week with your approval. Good. The last thing I need before the primaries is another embarrassment. If I lose to that quirk activist, I might as well dash. A gunshot interrupted him. What was that? Two bodyguards approached the president and quickly him away from the growing sound of fighting. Unknown attackers have boarded the plane. You'll be kept secure until they're dealt with, one of the guards said. They pushed 𝗪𝗀 into a smaller meeting room, closing the armored door once he was inside. The president took a few steps away from the door, waiting for the commotion to calm down. Instead, it got louder and closer before it suddenly got very quiet. All he could hear was someone talking outside, but he didn't understand the language. Without a warning, the door opened and three people stood before him. One of them was his bodyguard, but he had a blank, distant look on him, like he wasn't fully there. The other 𝗪𝗀 didn't recognize, a purple-haired man who seemed to say something to the bodyguard before they both walked away from the room, leaving the third with 𝗪𝗀. And the last person 𝗪𝗀 did recognize. A man with unmistakable green hair, uncharacteristically dressed in a suit with a mess of a tie and carrying a suitcase. A pleasure to meet you, President 𝗪𝗀. Apologies if this meeting interrupted any schedules you had, Deku said, keeping up a polite facade. Perhaps we should take a seat. I think this might take a while. 𝗪𝗀 clenched his fist at the person in front of him, but reluctantly sat down by the table as Deku did the same. Who the F do you think you are? Deku, leader of the Phoenix Revolution, Deku said, keeping up his smiling facade. 𝗪𝗀 scoffed. My reports describe you as an intelligent fellow. He slammed his hands into the table. But you must be the biggest idiot I've ever met if you think that you can get away with this. Hijacking Air Force One and holding me for hostage, and then try to brush it off with a joke. I'll make sure your little insurgency is removed from the face of the earth. No, you won't. Because by the end of the week you will be in Iowa giving a great speech about how you made peace with the Phoenix Revolution. As for the hostage-taking, you didn't give me much of a choice. I contacted you a few days ago to set up a proper meeting, but got no reply. And now we're here, Deku said. You still hijacked my plane, 𝗳𝗏 said. Deku leaned forwards and gave another smirk. It was either this or invading the White House. This seemed like the more reasonably alternative. The more reasonable. 𝗳𝗏 cut himself off. Alright, I'll play along. I'll get out of this either way. Great, then we can get this over with and I'll never have to see you again. Deku rummaged through a suitcase and pulled out a small folder. My terms are simple. I want all your military personnel and equipment out of Japan. In return, all prisoners of war will be returned and any American heroes captured will be freed. All seized equipment will be given back, and when the war is over you will be allowed to retrieve any remaining equipment or sensitive information that may be left behind in your military bases. A white peace. After so many deaths you expect me to show up back home with a white peace. It will get killed in the Senate. Not to mention the public outcry from the families that have lost their 𝗧𝗵𝗲 campaign speeches, Deku said, cutting off the president. It's an election year, I know what you really care about. Maybe, but my point still stands. I would need 2/3 of the Senate, and 1/3 is up for re-election along with me. So if you want any realistic chance of a peace then you have to give something more. 𝗳𝗏 leaned into his chair with a thoughtful expression. Perhaps some of your research documents. I'm sure that you have found breakthroughs that could help the medical field jump decades into the future. He leaned forwards, something glinting in his eye. Or perhaps that creature of yours. You won't need it when 𝗳𝗏 was then cut off by his face being slammed into the table. Really, trying to use your quirk on me? A simple persuasion quirk like your won't cut it. Black twirled around Deku's arm, his expression dark. I've spent almost my entire life on my research, and I'll spend the rest of my life ensuring that it follows me into the grave. 𝗳𝗏 glared at Deku as he rubbed his face. As for 𝗳𝗏𝗼𝗺, I can hardly see him being of any use to you once he's dead. I only made him to live long enough to serve a purpose. After that he will die and his body burn up. I couldn't give him to you even if I wanted to, Deku said. Then we don't have anything more to discuss other than how I'll destroy your insurgency, 𝗳𝗏 said. Wong, I still have this to show you. Deku pulled out a laptop and opened it to a paused security footage. Pay attention now because someone I worked with died for this video. Deku pressed play. This video was taken near where 𝗧𝗍𝗍 𝗧𝗏𝗍𝗍 lived 6 days before he allegedly bombed your naval base. Interestingly, it also shows him being detained in an unmarked van that I found out belongs to the Japanese army. Which seems to collide with the whole narrative. Zankaku is alright, I get it. That random guy didn't do it and you've been framed in a false flag attack. I've seen that footage already. You've got anything else? 𝗳𝗏 said. Deku froze, his mouth hanging open for a moment. What? 𝗳𝗏 chuckled. You've been on our list of severely dangerous individuals ever since you killed 𝗳𝗏. Not to mention the dangerous ideals your movement has. So ever since you came back we've looked for any excuse to get rid of you and your revolution. Zankaku offered a solution and in return we helped him up the ladder. 𝗳𝗏 slowly stood up and leaned over Deku. And the good thing about quirk is they offer a great excuse for documents that are not so pleasing in the public eye. You can leak that footage, I'll just claim it is the work of some quirk. Deku's head hung low, his hair blocking 𝗳𝗏's view of his face. So what you're saying is that you helped kill 𝗧𝗍𝗁, Deku said quietly. Who? A man of truth. Doesn't really matter to you anyways. Deku laughed and looked up, his expression carrying an edge of craziness. It just means I have more reason to go ahead with my nuclear option. 𝗳𝗏 scoffed. And who would give you nukes? The Chinese. It was more figuratively speaking, but may have the same result on your popularity in the end. Deku grabbed the laptop and began typing. You see, in my efforts to find out about the true nature of the 𝗧𝗵𝗃 bombing, I had someone look through your classified databases. One person turned into a group, which then turned into a small warehouse of gnomes with technology-based quirks. Anyways, what I'm saying is that I have full access to every single secret that the US has stored on a computer. From classified operations to your personal calendar. Deku then locked eyes with 𝗬𝗏. I hope your daughter's school presentation goes well tomorrow. 𝗬𝗏 slammed his fist into the table. If you as much as touch her, I will make sure everything you've built burns. Don't worry, I won't make a direct move against her. I just want you to realize what I can do against you. Because with a single press of a button I can make it all public. Spread everything across all corners of the internet and let it be downloaded by everyone within minutes. I'm sure your geopolitical opponents would love to get their hands on the locations of your secret bases, missile silos, access to launch codes, convoy schedules, and a full list of all undercover agents. Not to mention the media getting their hands on enough dark secrets of black site quirk camps and human experimentation to fuel the entire news cycle to way past the election. The president slid back into his chair, taking deep breaths. I'm listening. Great. Obviously there can be no mention of this meeting or what happened here, that should go without saying. Other than that, agree to my terms and end all hostilities with the Phoenix Revolution, as well as withdrawing all support from 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁's regime within a week. I don't care what excuse you give the public, but I would recommend framing 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 for everything and deny involvement. Beyond that, I don't care what you do. Deku slid a sheet of paper over to 𝗬𝗏 along with a pen. Once you hold up your end of the deal, I will hold up mine and return all equipment and personnel. And as long as the deal holds, I won't take any actions towards you or the US. 𝗬𝗏 picked up the pen and quickly signed the paper. Understand this, Deku. I will sign this agreement and follow it, but not 1 inch more. You will receive sympathy or help from the US. And if you win, there will be no trade deals coming from me. I wouldn't expect otherwise. Not that I need your false sympathy. Deku took the signed paper and began packing his suitcase. And just a little piece of advice: if you do survive your re-election. History has shown that some revolutions, and especially successful ones, tends to spread. Like sparks from a fire trying to ignite nearby powder kegs. Your own independence war, for example, pretty much led the French peasants to chop off their king's head. Deku stood up and began walking out of the room. I can't predict what will happen, but you shouldn't be surprised if you start seeing trouble back home, he said before leaving the smoldering president alone. The sound of a chair being thrown could be heard from the room as Deku walked away. You will never escape the consequences of what you did today, Deku. The shouting echoed down the corridors of the plane. Your revolution and its rule will die out before I leave office. Deku laughed. Go ahead, Mr. President. You can even try to assassinate me if you wish. I might even beat Fidel Castro's record. Deku ignored the following threats coming from 𝗬𝗏 as he walked away, eventually meeting up with his fellow hijackers. How did it go? ◵ said. He will do what we want. I just had to threaten the most powerful individual on the planet along with his family. Not to mention challenging him to assassinate me. Deku opened a portal. And I might just have slammed his face into the table at one point. 𝗬𝗏 burst out laughing. You should have brought a camera in there. I would watch it on repeat. Deku smirked. They have cameras in every room, so that might be arranged. Bakugo lingered in front of the door, doubt seeping into his mind. He took a deep breath before knocking. After a few moments, Toshinori opened the door. You look like 𝗧𝗏𝗃, Bakugo said. Toshinori rubbed his sunken eyes. I haven't slept well. That doesn't seem to be your only problem. Bakugo walked past Toshinori and into the dark apartment. The dust had started gathering on the shelves, and a quick peek into the kitchen revealed a pile of dirty dishes. You've really let this place go. Age is taking its hold on me. Toshinori slumped down into the sofa. My conditions have gotten worse and I can barely eat. Especially since 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁. And you haven't called 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗁 for help. Bakugo said. I don't want to burden her. Things are complicated enough for her. Have it your way, 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said and sat down. Why did you visit me, 𝗵𝗃𝗁? Things must be busy for heroes right now. I'm not a hero anymore. Handed in my license once that 𝗬𝗲𝗍𝗄 decided to militarize us. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 glanced at the news footage being played in the background. It's just that with the US pulling out, we all know who will win. And that person will come for me and kill me, and I can't do anything. He looked back towards 𝗧𝗵𝗲. All I want is to live with Ijiro and raise Fumiko. But karma is a beach. Contemplating your own mortality. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 nodded. I've done the same for a while now. It's a difficult thing to come to terms with. I'm not going to come to terms with anything. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 stood up. I've worked so strong since UA to make up for what I did to him. I've used every opportunity to help those like him. Climbing so high up on the hero rankings as I could just to use that attention to bring attention to quirkless rights. I've thrown away so much money just to help one more. I'm even raising someone who was abandoned by her parents because of something outside her control. And I would give everything to keep being with her. And if... He is shaking as he sat back down. And if that's not enough, I don't know what is. 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗍 sighed. I didn't say you had to come to terms with anything, only that I have. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 looked up. There once was a time when I could change the world by saying 3 words. And now I can't change the mind of a single man who once adored me to save my life. But I think I might still be able to save someone else's this one last time. What do you mean? Deku used to be a forgiving kid once, right? 𝗵𝗃𝗁 nodded. Then call me a naive and dying old man, but I think a part of that still lives in him. But I suspect that his want for revenge overshadows it. And while revenge is a powerful motivator, it is a hollow one. Once you reach your goal, you're left empty. There is nothing gained from it. Maybe if someone gives him a taste of that emptiness, he will see that more revenge isn't the answers. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 looked at 𝗧𝗵𝗲 with a shocked expression. You're not saying that you're going to turn myself in? I am, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. You can't. He's going to destroy you and everything you built up, 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said. I am already dying. My doctor is surprised that I've even been alive for so long. As I said, I've come to terms with it. Either I die quietly and some resemblance of a false legacy will live on, or I hand myself over. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 places his hand on 𝗵𝗃𝗁's shoulder. And maybe save you in process. Have you told Uraraka? If I did, she wouldn't let me go through with it. She's too similar to me that way, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. And what makes you think I will let you? 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, his voice uneven. Because deep down I think you understand it is necessary, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 began fighting back his tears. After all this time and you still manage to be a hero. I guess it's my way of making up for the one time I failed to be one. The door rattled from under the intense knocking. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 groggily walked over and looked through the peeping hole. Outside stood a group of 4 people in dark clothes. Who is it? Island security. We've got a search warrant for illegal materials. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 took a step back. Could you show it to me? She jumped back when something heavy was rammed into the door. Twice the door bent under the force before it fell, and the group rushed into the apartment. None of them had the labels of the local security. Just as one of them started cuffing 𝗵𝗃𝗃, 2 of the others was dragged out the door by a gray cloth. The one cuffing 𝗵𝗃𝗃 tried drawing a gun, but was stopped by the same gray cloth as a purple-haired figure rushed into the apartment and knocked them out. The last person stood with his gun pointed at the attacker when a crackling voice sounded in the room. What's the status? We've been at --. The person's face turned empty, and his body froze. The attacker's mask retracted as he spoke with a normal voice. Put down your gun, then cuff your colleagues, then yourself. The frozen person started doing so as the attacker turned towards 𝗵𝗃𝗃. You're 𝗵𝗃𝗃, right? Yeah, who are you? Discord, Hitoshi said. Your government found out about your side project. Deku sent us to get you out. I need to get my files at the lab then, Melissa said as she rushed out the door. If the feds get those years of work will be undone. The two hurried through the dim paths of Island. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 should be at your lab now keeping it safe, Hitoshi said as they got close. Who's 𝗧𝗵𝗲? Melissa asked. Her question was quickly answered when a dark shadow burst out from her lab, holding a person firing their gun wildly. Oh, that guy. The cell door closed mechanically behind Deku. In front of him, sitting in a chair far too big, was the frail body of 𝗬𝗏. I was surprised when I heard that you surrendered yourself, Deku said as he sat down. I thought that you would flee to the States. He chuckled. But oh, am I glad to have you right where I want. How's 𝗧𝗓𝗏 reacting to this? 𝗬𝗏 asked. Deku stuttered. I don't really know. I've been ignoring it until this is over. No dreams. Not yet. 𝗬𝗏 pondered for a bit. Do you truly believe that this vendetta you have against me is worth it? You've already destroyed my reputation at this point. Hardly anyone in this country looks at my career fondly these days. What do you really get out of killing me that you don't already have other than a fancy closure? Ochako loves you very much, you're important to her and your children. I really hope that that won't be destroyed by petty vengeance. This isn't just vengeance. Deku looked away. And I can deal with Ochako. She'll get over it. 𝗬𝗏 leaned forwards. And what if she doesn't? Not to mention your longing to kill Bakugo. There is a limit to every relationship. Can you say for sure that killing him won't reach that limit? And what do you plan to say to Koshiro when he asks why you killed Fumiko's father? Izuku slowly shook his head looking down. 𝗬𝗏 rose up and gently placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder. Don't give up on a happy life just to fulfill old grudges Midoriya. Deku's gaze snapped towards 𝗬𝗏 as he pushed the old man away. Who cares about my happy ending? He was seething. My life is nothing compared to the good of everyone. Everything I do is done out of necessity. 𝗬𝗏 sighed and sat down. Do you truly think that right now, killing Bakugo would be for the good of everyone? Someone known by the public mostly as a charitable man fighting for quirkless rights. I can understand the message sent by killing me, but not Bakugo. So that is what this is, Deku huffed, you just want to save Kaken. To be the hero one last time, that's something I hope to achieve, yes, but mainly I want to help you avoid making the same mistakes I did. 𝗬𝗏 said. Your mistakes. Deku's lips curled into a smile. The only thing I've done is rectify your mistakes. Everything I've done has because I have learned from your mistakes. 𝗬𝗏 lifted his shirt, exposing the large red and purple scarring along his stomach. All except for this one. He covered the scar and sighed, I want you to know that my path to being a hero began as a noble one. I wanted to fix the problems I saw back then in society. And when I got the chance from my mentor I took it, thinking I could become a beacon of safety for others. But then I lost her to all for one. 𝗬𝗏's breath was ragged. She was like a mother to me and seeing him take her away from me filled me with so much anger and hatred. I wanted to kill him, but I didn't have the strength at first. So, I traveled to the States to get experience, and all that time my motivation was the longing to kill one man. The man I had come to see as the source of all the problems I wanted to fix. You did a poor job on that front, Deku remarked. I know, but that was the only thing on my mind back then. And after some years the opportunity to attack him arose. And I, filled with lust for vengeance, rushed in without a plan. Which of course led to 𝗬𝗏 motion towards his scar. But the biggest shock was what came over me when his bloodied body laid still at my feet. For so long I had been driven by vengeance, but afterwards I felt so empty. Figuratively and literally. He locked eyes with Izuku. I know that I should have done so much more for you and everyone else who suffered in the dark. And while I can't give any sufficient excuse, I can give a reason. I had been driven by anger and revenge for years to end the one thing I saw as a threat to everyone. When that drive disappeared into nothing, I lost purpose. I just kept doing what I had done before, because my lust for revenge had made me blind to everything else. I do not want the same thing to happen to you, 𝗵𝗃𝗍. We're not the same All Might. Deku stood up. I might have started out of revenge, but the only thing I care about right now is to end the old rotten system and bring a new age of prosperity. Nothing else matters. He turned around and left the old man alone. Once outside the cell, he slid down against the wall and let out a long sigh. I really don't understand why you want to talk to that fake. The voice of 𝗬𝗵𝗍 quickly grabbed Deku's attention. He'll die tomorrow, why bother? Because he's not a complete idiot. Him surrendering could have been a trap. I just needed to be sure. Deku huffed. But it seems to just have been a vain attempt at saving Kaken, nothing important. 𝗬𝗵𝗍 chuckled. You seemed quite upset over nothing then. Deku glared back. Alright, touchy subject. By the way, your two heroes have returned. Great, I'll go there immediately. Deku quickly got, but as he began to move, 𝗬𝗵𝗍 blocked the way. What is it? You just seem awfully trusting of our enemy. Especially considering what happened last time we trusted a hero. A fire lit up in 𝗬𝗵𝗍's hand. Have you forgotten what you told me once? All heroes are enemies and must be purged. Or have you gained other allegiances? Deku looked up at 𝗬𝗵𝗍 with determined eyes. Are you questioning my leadership? A small flicker of lighting flew of Deku. 𝗬𝗵𝗍 grinned. I just want to be sure that I'm still following the same person I helped on the streets so long ago. And not some softy who just wants to get in bed with some 𝗵𝗃 dash. 𝗬𝗵𝗍's voice choked as a black tendril whipped around his neck and slammed him into the wall. Be very careful with finishing that sentence, Deku said, his voice eerily calm. The black tendril disappeared, and 𝗬𝗵𝗍 fell onto the floor. It might be strong for you to understand, 𝗬𝗵𝗍, but people change, even heroes. Like your brother, for example. And I too have changed, but I'm not soft. It's more so that the rage of my youth has mellowed. Deku began walking down the hallway. But I promise you that I will see the revolution to its end. When Deku reached the meeting room, the two former heroes stood waiting by the entrance. Discord and 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃, good job. You're proving to be reliable agents for the revolution. And maybe you can be more lenient towards Hawks, 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 remarked. Deku chuckled. I told you, that's up to him, but... He pondered a bit. Maybe some leniency can be given depending on your future effort. We can discuss it more at a different time. For now, you're both dismissed. Sure. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 said as he and Discord left. Deku entered the room and sat down next to Melissa. Sorry, I couldn't get you out myself. The US finding out about Project Trojan came unexpectedly and I was busy with one of Zenkaku's counter-offensives. It's alright, those two wiped the floor with those agents and Trojan is safe. Melissa sighed. I'm just afraid of my dad. What if they think he's involved? I wouldn't worry too much about it. The only thing they know is that you're tied to multiple organizations they consider dangerous to their own security. As far as we know, they have no idea of the nature of those connections. And if they arrest your dad, a simple lie detecting quirk will discover that he knows nothing. Deku said. That's good. Deku looked towards Melissa's laptop. It showed a long list of names, each with a small description of their role in Project Trojan. Speaking of the devil, how's your project going? I see that the list has grown significantly. You have no idea. We find more and more people discontented with how the hero system is in the States every day. Especially after the president had to withdraw from here after a few weeks of war and one naval invasion. The involvement of heroes in that invasion didn't sit well with people either. Deku chuckled. The elite has themselves to thank for that. I had my doubts when you said you could bring our ideals to the States with politics, but maybe with so much discontent it might have results. Maybe Japan is the only country that needs to shed BLD for change, to show the faults of the old ways. I hope so too. Melissa said. Phoenix Journal, number 6 entry 67, this pressure I've been feeling for half month now just keeps rising. Maybe it's me just being nervous for what comes after our victory. We've been steamrolling Zenkaku's army ever since the US pulled out. Our next battle will be over Kyoto, and once that is over Zenkaku will be trapped in Tokyo. That dream of a better society I had so long ago might soon become reality. I feel so nervous over it. Will I succeed or just screw up and make a worse society like my opponents have claimed? I really should not doubt myself at this moment, and yet I end up doing so. All Might's words haven't helped much for my psyche either. And I hate to admit it, but he has some points. I don't know what I'm willing to sacrifice for my victory, not anymore. I thought once that nothing would stop me, but the list of people I want to be happy has grown since then. I want Eri to be safe, Koshiro to grow up in a better world, and Ochako to be happy. But she had to become friends with Kaken. And of course he suddenly had to start redeeming himself so many years too late. Then there is the matter of All Might's upcoming demise. Of all the people at UA at the time, why did he give Ochako one for all? It's such a curse and yet a blessing. I would never have met her if not for All Might. But I also wouldn't have to risk losing her on this final stretch of the journey. I hope she can forgive me for what I have to do tomorrow. And I hope she can do the same when Kaken's time comes. But I have to be prepared for the worst. If I can't forgive myself, why should I expect her to? Izuku put down the notebook, his hands trembling. Why must the end always be the hardest? He reached out for his phone, his hand lingering for a bit before he called. Hey Eri, sorry for calling you late. I just wanted to know if your mom. Izuku trailed off. Is all right. Eri finished. Izuku could hear a sigh over the phone. I'm pretty sure she was ready to beat you to a pulp when she found out you captured All Might. Luckily for you, Bakugo came and calmed her down. That would be a first. Apparently, he had spoken with All Might shortly before you captured him. He told her something about All Might wanting this, which calmed her down. After that she went to her room and hasn't left since. Eri's voice was tired. She's eaten the food I've given her, but not much else. I see. Memories of being alone after Inko's death came to Izuku's mind. Listen Dad, I don't want you and Mom to leave each other. Can you please just dash? Eri's voice hitched. Izuku could imagine the tears that began falling. Don't worry Eri, me and Mom will be fine. We just have to get through this, okay? Izuku hated the sinking feeling in his chest that came with lying. But what about Bakugo? He's her friend and another hitch in her voice. I don't think she will forgive you for killing a friend this time. Eri's sobbing was clear now. Izuku's mind was blank. He had tried to ignore this topic for the last few months, and now he didn't know what to think or say. Eri took a deep breath. He isn't just her friend either. He helped Ochako raise me and Koshiro while you were gone. And Fumiko and Koshiro are so close. Bakugo has taken them on so many trips. There is this forest that we go to often where he... As Eri kept talking, Izuku's mind wandered to old memories he hadn't thought about in years. Hazy dreamlike images of the old playground with other kids, walking through the nearby forest and over a small stream. Many were bad memories of bullying, but some were good. Filled with laughter and childlike wonder. And in all of them was Bakugo, confidently leading everyone around him. Had that boy really changed so much, Izuku wondered. Izuku was pulled out of the reminiscing by Eri's crying on the phone. I know you don't like him, and that you probably won't ever forgive him. That's fine, you don't have to. But please, for me, Mom and Koshiro, let him live. Can you promise that? Eri said. Izuku gritted his teeth. I can't make promises that I can't keep. Eri's silence was crushing. Okay Dad, she said and hung up. Izuku dropped his phone and clenched his fist. He clenched his fist as tears began forming. Deku felt the light drizzle of rain on his skin as he watched over the large crowd. Despite the cold weather, more people showed than any previous hero execution. Currently, most of the crowd looked in awe at the imposing figure of 𝗳𝗏𝗼 standing behind Deku. He pushed away the heavy feeling in his stomach and stepped forwards to the podium. My fellow dreamers, today is a day of great importance. For years we have fought and died for our cause. To make a better country for all of us. And as we've shown in battle after battle, our righteous wrath can't be stopped. Not by heroes, not by 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and not by his ally across the ocean. We will continue marching until the bright red flag of our phoenix is flown in every town and city. Deku paused as the crowd cheered. And that day will soon come. Not even our most devout critics can doubt our impending victory. Yet the dictator in Tokyo wants more BLD sacrificing innocents so that he can rule over a sliver of the country. Does he not see that none can overcome our power? Deku raised his arm towards the flaming giant behind him. 𝗳𝗵𝗃 let out a roar as his flames flared outwards, warming the cold air, and turning the rain around him to steam. Deku looked down and took a deep breath before continuing. Unfortunately, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 is simply a symptom of the disease that has plagued our world for a century. We must not forget the true enemy. The 𝗧𝗍 Commission and their deep-rooted institutionalized corruption that allowed for a society that segregated people based on quirks. A bureaucratic oligarchy with the sole purpose of maintaining a false image of the noble hero. Using vast resources to manipulate the public and hiding the dirty underside of heroics. Which is why today, I'm excited to announce the end of heroes in Japan. A hole opened up next to Deku and a pole began rising up. Bound to it was the frail form of 𝗳𝗍𝗍. I don't think we can ever blame one person for a century of misdeeds. Deku gestured towards 𝗳𝗍𝗍. But none symbolizes that century more than the one they labeled as the symbol of peace, 𝗳𝗍𝗍. 𝗳𝗍𝗍 looked up with sad eyes as several in the crowd called out for his death. A man who started out as quirkless. Someone who should have known what it was like to be at the bottom of the societal hierarchy. And yet, once he climbed to very top, gaining an unmeasurable sway over the public, the power to actually and truly help everyone. He did nothing. He basked in the spotlight, beat up the televised villains, while never calling out the ones within the 𝗧𝗍 Commission. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 is a good summary of him. But it's the nature of time that the old ways must give in. It's the nature of time that the new age comes in sin. And when the new meets the old, it always ends the ancient ways. And as history told, the old ways go out in a blaze. Deku walked over to the old man and leaned in. I told you that this is how you would die. In front of cheering crowds. Any final words? He said. 𝗳𝗍𝗍 looked at Deku with an undiscernible expression. I wish I could go back and do things different. But I'm content with this. Because I know deep inside you are a good person. I forgive you, 𝗳𝗍𝗍 said. Izuku froze. 𝗳𝗍𝗍 smiled as he for a moment could see the same insecure face he had seen on that rooftop so long ago. The moment quickly passed as Deku walked away without looking at the old hero or the crowd. He walked back to the podium and took a deep breath before continuing. Let this be the end of the age of heroes. And the beginning of the age of the phoenix. Deku said, his voice slightly uneven. The excitement in the crowd rose as heat and smoke came from the floor beneath 𝗳𝗍𝗍. But suddenly the crowd was silenced, and Deku was once again stunned by 𝗳𝗍𝗍. In the final moment before the flames rose, instead of the frail true form of 𝗳𝗍𝗍, stood the large symbol of peace. He gave a small smile right before he was engulfed by a pillar of fire. The silence following the flames lasted for a long while, until Deku managed to find some words. We will not forget our victory today. He then walked away, leaving behind a stunned crowd. As Deku walked away, he was immediately greeted by Dabi. What the F happened there? Deku could feel the steam coming from him as raindrops evaporated. The most important execution so far, and you just leave like that. Letting 𝗳𝗍𝗍 have the final laugh. It was just unexpected that. Deku said, hardly listening to Dabi. It happened differently than I expected. It will only be seen as a fluke once we win anyway. Deku opened a portal. If you'll excuse me, I need to think. At the same time as Deku held his speech, Ochako was alone in her bedroom. Not long ago, this moment had only seemed like a faraway possibility. Now it was far too real. If 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁 had not told her why All Might did this, she would have been on her way to stop Deku. Instead, she sat sobbing by her bed, afraid of what would happen if Deku continued. Suddenly, 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 felt a cold shiver going up her spine and the world around her shifted into dark fog, like one of her dreams. She quickly stood up and looked around. At first it was empty, then All Might's fiery vestige appeared slowly in front of her. Still maintaining the hero form his real self hadn't used for years. The vestige then began shifting. First a subtle shift, the flaming edges, as if a wind was blowing the upwards. It quickly grew more violent, and the flames were blown upwards and away from the vestige, as it slowly shrank. Left behind was no longer the large figure of All Might in his prime, but the thin, emancipated man 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 knew. So this is how Nana felt. It's weird not having a connection to the real me anymore. 𝗳𝗧𝗏 then looked at 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 and gave a warm smile. I think I owe you an apology for not telling you what I was planning. Why didn't you tell me? 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁's voice was quiet. Because I know you. You would never let me do what had to be done. You would rather sacrifice yourself so that I could live just a bit longer. 𝗳𝗧𝗏 chuckled. You're selfless just like me, just like Midoriya. I don't think Izuku would have done all this if he was selfless. He wouldn't want to kill you and 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁 if he was. He knows what you two means to me. 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 said. 𝗳𝗧𝗏 sighed and pulled 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 into an embrace, smiling as she collapsed into him. I'm afraid it's the opposite. This vestige of me might not have a good connection with Midoriya's One for All, but the predecessors do. And through them I know many things. He is selfless to a fault, it's just twisted. He sees his revolution as the ultimate way for him to help as many as he can, no matter what it does to him. And through years of built-up anger and need for revenge, he's come to see mine and 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁's execution as part of that goal. I really wants to have a happy life with you and your children. He is at conflict with himself. He wants to help as many as he can, and revenge has made killing 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁 a part of that in his eyes. But he also knows that it hurts you, which again hurts him. I just hope that my final conversation with him left its mark. Did you succeed then? 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 said. That is left to be seen. But I know that the real me was completely satisfied in his final moments. Izuku sat on a ridge overlooking a forested valley, in front of him a lake shimmered in the setting sun. His mind was going through the events earlier when he felt someone landing next to him. He looked up and saw 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁. Her eyes were red and tired as she slumped down next to him. I thought you might show up. Izuku sighed. You can punch me if you want. I deserve it. 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 roughly nudged her elbow into Izuku. For someone who's just achieved one of their life goals, you don't seem happy. I know. I feel empty. Izuku chuckled. I guess he was right. What will you do next? Kill 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁. Izuku looked away. I don't know. And I don't want to promise any 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗁 cut him off. I need to know now. Izuku. Do you have any idea how I felt when you took 𝗳𝗏𝗏𝗏? I don't want to go through it again, so I want to know. Can you let him live his own life, or will we have to end things between us? 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁's voice was uneven, but stern. Izuku looked back at 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁, his eyes watery. I'm sorry, but I'm so unsure now. I feel so empty after killing All Might, and if he was right then killing Kakin won't be different. And I know how important he has become to you, and Kirishima and his daughter and so on. But I can't just let go of the person I know he was. I still remember all the kicking, punching, burns, explosions and name-calling he did. It's not fair that he gets to get away with all. And I know he's different now, same with me, but I just can't forgive him. Okay. 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 stood up and took a step away. However, 𝗳𝗧𝗂𝗁 stopped. I love you more than I hate him. I love Eri more, and I love Koshiro more. I might never let go of my hatred for him, but losing your love is much worse. I won't forgive him. I don't know what to do with him, but if killing him makes me lose you, then I won't do it. Izuku smiled. I've made so much hatred in this world, maybe I should keep some of the love in it. Ochako quickly turned around and embraced Izuku. Thank you, she whispered. Later during the night in a bunker beneath the streets of Tokyo, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 sat annoyed in a room filled with squabbling generals. He chuckled to himself as they debated how to still win this. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 then slammed his fist into the table, silencing them. With the strategies you're discussing, I'm surprised we've survived this long. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 stood up and began pacing around the room. A few of the generals gulped. Of course, I don't blame any of you for our allies' retreat, but still. The incompetence is staggering. He stopped and placed his hands on the shoulder of the unlucky general in front of him. My dear Asano, your defense of Shikoku was just pathetic. I mean, of course Deku would discover your ambush, his movement spent over a decade underground. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 moved on to another general. And Kawasaki, trusting Hawks. We could have held Osaka for months. But you had to trust a man who had shown sympathies for Deku in the past, and even put him in charge of your northern defense. Fool. Then what do you plan, Premier 𝗧𝗵𝗃? One of the generals said. Simple, strike where it hurts. We don't have the manpower to dash. I'm not talking about manpower, General, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said. You quirked people are all the same, power this, power that. All you see is physical power. That's why Deku is so successful, and why I know how to hurt him. Because when you're quirkless you see that quirks is just a facade of the person underneath. Usually some scumbag in the playground. Same with Deku. Beneath all that power is a very vulnerable person. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 sat back down, his face carried a sinister smile. He has people he loves. People he would do everything for. Some of whom, we can exploit.